Marcus Reed spent 30 years chasing the deal that was finally going to make him rich. The franchise, the stock tip, the real estate flip, the crypto his buddies swore was going to the moon. The ground floor can't miss opportunity. Marcus chased every one of them because Marcus was smart, and Marcus knew deep in his bones that real money is never made slowly. Real money is made in one big move, and he was always one move away from it. He's 61 now, and last month he stood in a break room and watched a man named Gene retire. Gene, a guy Marcus had quietly felt a little sorry for his entire career. A man who did the same steady, boring job for 30 years and never chased a single thing in his life. Gene retired a millionaire. Almost $2 million, actually. Marcus Reed has $41,000 to his name. And here's what should stop you cold. The reason Gene is wealthy and Marcus is not has nothing to do with luck or income or brains. Marcus was smarter than Gene. Marcus earned more than Gene almost every year of their lives. It comes down to one single belief, a belief you very likely hold right now, today, and it quietly robbed Marcus of a fortune he'd actually been holding the entire time. So let me take you back 30 years to the first big idea, the one that felt like the beginning of everything, and show you the exact moment Marcus started tearing up a winning ticket to go buy scratch-offs. It's 1994. Marcus is 31, a licensed electrician in a suburb of Detroit, and by every measure, he's doing fine. Good union job, steady checks, and crucially, a little retirement account with about $18,000 in it that he'd been quietly building since his 20s. $18,000. Remember that number. Because if Marcus had done absolutely nothing, if he just left it alone and kept adding a little, that account would have grown into something that changes a family's entire future. But Marcus didn't feel fine. Marcus felt behind, because his brother-in-law had just opened a sandwich franchise, and he was talking numbers at Thanksgiving that made Marcus's steady paycheck feel like a joke. And a voice in Marcus's head, reasonable, confident, hungry, said, "Why are you crawling when you could be flying? This is the move. This is the one." So Marcus cashed out the $18,000, every cent of the thing that was quietly building his future, poured into the thing that was going to make it happen fast. And for 8 months, it almost worked. That's the cruelest part. The franchise did okay. Not great, but enough to keep the dream alive. Enough to make Marcus feel like a man who'd bet right. Right up until the anchor store in the plaza closed, the foot traffic died, and the whole thing folded. Marcus walked away with a fraction of what he put in. But he didn't learn the lesson you'd think. He learned the wrong one. He didn't think, "I shouldn't have gambled my future." He thought, "I was so close. Next time, I'll pick better." And that single thought would cost him the next 30 years. Because now, Marcus had a taste of it. And every few years, a new one appeared. In 1999, it was tech stocks. Everyone was getting rich. The whole country was drunk on it. And Marcus rebuilt a little savings just to pour it straight into 3 companies his barber swore were the future. In 2001, 2 of them didn't exist anymore. He climbed back. He always climbed back. That's what made it a tragedy instead of just a mistake. Marcus was a hard worker. He'd rebuild the base, get a little cushion, get a little safe, and then get restless. Because safe felt like losing. Safe felt like Gene. In 2006, it was real estate. Marcus took out a second mortgage to flip a house, absolutely certain the market only went up. He bought at the top. You know what happened next. When the crash came in 2008, Marcus didn't just lose the flip, he nearly lost his own home holding it. And still, he called it bad timing. Not a bad strategy, bad luck. Then came crypto. Then a friend's trucking startup, then day trading options at the kitchen table at night while his wife slept. Every single time, the same pattern, running like clockwork for 3 decades. Build a little stable, boring wealth, then rip it out by the roots to feed the next thing that was finally, definitely, going to be the one. He was a man frantically digging holes all over a field, certain the treasure was in the next one. And he never once noticed he was standing on it. Now let me show you the number that should hurt. because this is where the whole thing turns. Remember Gene, boring Gene. Gene never flipped a house. Gene never bought a stock tip or a coin or a franchise. Gene did one almost laughably simple thing. Every payday, for 30 years, he put a piece of his check into a plain, boring index fund. And then, and this is the entire secret, he left it completely alone. He didn't touch it. He didn't chase it. He didn't get clever. He just let time and compounding do the boring, patient, unglamorous work. That's it. That's the whole strategy. And it quietly turned an average electrician's salary into almost $2 million. Marcus made more money than Gene. If Marcus had simply done the boring thing, left that first $18,000 alone, added to it, and never touched it, he'd have retired with more than Gene did, probably far more. But Marcus couldn't leave it alone, because leaving it alone felt like doing nothing. It felt slow. It felt boring. It felt like being a sucker while smarter men got rich fast. So every time his money started to quietly grow into something real, Marcus dug it up to chase something exciting and handed his entire fortune, piece by piece, to the belief that wealth had to be fast. The shortcut wasn't the fast way. The shortcut was the longest road there is, and Marcus spent 30 years running down it. The schemes got quieter as Marcus got older. The confidence thinned out. The next big things started sounding, even to him, a little desperate. And one afternoon, in a break room in a suburb of Detroit, 61-year-old Marcus Reed stood holding a lukewarm coffee and watched them wheel out a cake for Gene's retirement. Gene, red-faced and happy, talking about the lake house and the grandkids and the trips he and his wife had been putting off. Gene, who had never once had a good idea about money, except the one that mattered. And Marcus did the math he'd spent 30 years refusing to do. 61 years old, $41,000, a body worn out from a job he now couldn't afford to leave, and a long, straight highway of almosts stretching back behind him. Every exit a fortune he'd dug up and thrown away, chasing the next one. He hadn't been unlucky. That was the thing he finally understood, standing there with the cheap coffee going cold in his hand. He'd been given the exact same winning ticket as Gene. The same market, the same decades, the same compounding. He'd just torn his up, over and over and over, certain the real prize was somewhere else. Now, here's what I promised you. Here's why this should keep you up tonight. Because you're watching this, and part of you is already doing it. Already thinking about the thing that's going to change everything. The coin, the side hustle, the play. The one move that finally launches you out of slow and boring and into rich. That belief that wealth comes from one brilliant move instead of one boring habit repeated for a long time is the exact belief that emptied Marcus's life. And it's one of the most expensive ideas a human being can hold because it makes the slow, certain path feel like failure and the fast, thrilling path feel like intelligence. It is precisely backwards. Here's the truth almost nobody wants because it's boring, and boring doesn't sell. Wealth is not built by the big move. It is built by the boring one, repeated, and then, this is the part Marcus could never do, left alone long enough for time to work. The people who get rich slow almost always stay rich. The people chasing rich fast almost always stay chasing. Marcus didn't have a different brain than you. He just had 30 years to prove where that one belief leads. You've got the same belief, whispering the same thing, about your own version of the next big move. And the boring account you keep ignoring, that was always the fortune. Marcus Reed spent his whole life chasing a fortune, and the entire time he was standing on one, digging it up again and again to go looking for it somewhere else. The treasure was never in the next hole. It was in the boring, unglamorous, almost embarrassing act of picking one spot and staying there. Gene knew that. Or maybe Gene just wasn't smart enough to talk himself out of it. Sometimes that's the same thing. So before you go chasing the move that's finally going to make you rich, check your feet. You might already be standing on it. Subscribe, because there are far more of these than you would ever believe. And the next one might be the one you're living right now.